Hello, my little blueberry muffins, and welcome to yet another episode of Faden's Mapping How To's. We are sticking with the theme of trees, specifically from above, and we have previously, in an earlier video and an earlier written guide, and if you want that guide, check me out on Patreon, we talked about single trees and tree clusters and forests. So specifically, fun little things like this, the little walkways in between. We will finish off that big, huge forest to the northeast there in a moment. And then individual little trees such as this. So today, I actually want to hit on the next two topics, that being parks and gardens. Parks and gardens are, we're basically going to be drawing the same sort of trees, bushes, shrubs, etc. But this time with a little bit more purpose, okay? A little bit more, I don't want to say, planning. So with that said, let me kind of jump into this and let's find a little sort of housing area such as, well, why not here? So I'm going to just pick my building layer. I'm going to draw as a little building, and I'm going to give you an idea of going from individual trees in a built-up location, my thought process for that, gardens, and then a full-on park, okay? So let's just draw for now. Maybe we've got like a little building like this here, and we'll do a little cluster like so. You'll see that I'm creating the street edges with my edge of the buildings. We do this. Now what you'll see forming on the screen now is I have a little courtyard forming. My brain personally always goes to courtyards having something in the center such as maybe a fountain, a pond, a little seating area, maybe a tree or some bushes or something, right? Maybe a little garden. So let's finish off the courtyard. Each building here has a very similar shape in that it's, I would describe as an L shape, but they're uniquely got little details on them. So now here's my little courtyard right here. So, sometimes you might draw a little sort of water feature or something there. That could, if I colored that green, that becomes a little garden of sorts, right? Now, at this scale, when we're drawing a city kind of like all the way out here, it's not worth doing little individual bushes, but it doesn't hurt to do something like this. A little bit of texture. If I actually, I'm not even sure if I've actually started coloring on this yet, but let me quickly show you what I'm talking about. If we just grab a simple green here, color this in, maybe we go a little bit towards a yellow, a little bit towards a yellow, get a little bit of that going on. You see how that becomes more of a garden at this point? Let's slip towards our black and white. Let's go back towards our, let's do the building there. Conversely, I wouldn't normally do, by the way, courtyards closely packed by this, like this, but this certainly gives a good variety to your cities, right? Now I think I would look at this and go, oh, what's with these courtyards being all backed up like this? All right, just quickly drawing them in. Conversely, a little courtyard like that, maybe it's got one or two trees in the center here. Get my little texturing emphasized to the bottom right. Now, if we colored this, and by the way, we're going to cover coloring in much greater detail in a later chapter, but just to give you a sense of how I approach it. Notice, by the way, I'm actually hitting the highlights and the lowlights. Normally, by the way, in a courtyard like that, I'd only do the one tree, but just for giggles, just to like sort of switch things up a little bit. Single tree like so. Well, what about, actually, let me move these labels here. Let's get these guys out of the way. Let's put you up here. So, gardens like this, but let's do a slightly bigger garden. Let's go over towards where we've got our temples. So here, let's do a park and a garden in this general area. They follow similar rules, okay? First and foremost, for something like a garden, and let's do a separate layer because I want to reserve the ability. You know what? It's fine. But so a little garden like this, instead of like going all higgledy-piggledy, which is it's just that's cool. You could totally do that. But if you're doing that, it kind of becomes a little, shall we say, unplanned, a little bit looser. That becomes like more of a natural area that the city has left to be that way. And certainly you can do something like that, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if I actually want to make this thing feel a little bit more planned, then I might do a little entrance to my garden right along the edge of the actual path here, and maybe some little light planters, some shrubs. Notice that these are effectively just little tiny trees, but let's get them in there. Maybe a nice big tree right in here, you know, something like that. Well, maybe a little flower bed. So let's do something circular. And I think I'll texture this on the outside and give it a little shrub in the center. And let's do, there's going to be a path around it. Like so. Coming down like this, which gives me other little planting areas. So let's just reserve off where those little planting areas are going to be. This is as close to gardening as you get me, by the way. I'll do it virtually all day long, but will I actually do it in real life? Hell no. Now, because we're dealing with a scale that's so small, you don't have to draw each plant. You just draw a little bit of sort of texture in here. Now, there's two things that are going on here. One is if I leave this fairly small, I definitely have a little tiny garden of sorts, right? If I make this larger, I start to get towards a park. And let me show you what I mean by that. Maybe we have a water feature like this. I always tend to draw the paths in because it helps me kind of lay out and plan where people walk, and that helps me understand where they are then putting their plants and such, right? So this is one of the first times that you'll see me actually starting with paths and roads and things like that. This would be a great area for maybe a little bit of a tree. In fact, let's get rid of you. Let's do a tree over here like this. And we'll do smaller dots. And as if I'm going to just like demonstrate, if we now kind of colour in the background here. And I'm being very sort of slapdash on the colouring, but this will give you a great sense of what I'm talking about. In fact, let's just do one more next to the path. I always colour in the paths too, by the way. I haven't yet, but we'll do that later on. And in fact, let's just slide this towards a slightly lighter colour. Kind of get these little flowers in here. Like so. And then let's hit our tree. And by the way, when I do trees and such, I typically do a drop shadow and things on them too, but just staying away from that for now. Something like this. There we go. Now you can see that we have definitely a little park forming here. Right? In fact, let's take this one stage further. Oop, that's a little bit towards the purple. Let's bring this more towards the blue. And normally I would colour water on a separate layer underneath everything, but just for demonstration purposes. Something like this. So what I'm doing is I'm effectively, I think the rules are here. You want to make it look planned. You want to make it look used. The adding of the paths is part of that, right? The paths are part of the planning. They're part of utilization. The fact that I've got equal beds around a little central bed, that shows that this has been planned out and it's not just like a slapdash, just a rough part of, like, you know, natural land. And I'm thinking in terms of little features. I've got a bed here. I've got a little circular bed with paths going around it. I'll have a little tree overhanging the pond. The minute you do that, you're getting into gardens, which have intent and purpose and planning, and parks, which, let's face it, are large gardens. Now, I tend to place them either next to temples, pick out a park area in your town, where I would do a nice little park with sort of buildings all around it, and we'll probably do one of those in here, or individually in little courtyards and things like that, because that's typically what you'll get in a courtyard. You've got the buildings surrounding this little open area, and there may be a fountain, a pond, but there may also be a tree or a little sort of seating area, a little bit of patch of grass, mini garden, right? And I will, in fact, I even did one, a few months back here. I kind of just, and here, little bit of spot graphic, little bit of a tree, little bit of a garden, just here and there. This, by the way, is a similar sort of garden. I've got my two buildings. I've fenced off the area around, and that means that if I then coloured in this kind of manner, let's just kind of slide a bit more towards the mud. And again, I wouldn't normally use this type of brush for the colouring, but just to kind of demonstrate, I would consider this to be a courtyard. And then at the back, we've got a little bit of a garden going on. And this helps then break up the monotony of the building rooftops. There we go. Let's just make this a little bit muddy over here. Then let's kind of like trace in a path where most of the traffic is focused. And of course they would go to the door, they come out, and they kind of come into the back garden over here. Something a little bit like that. Then let's slide towards our green. You know, using these particular bushes is actually driving me nuts. Let's see if we can, happy HB, I do like my happy HB. Right in the corners, get some weeds, etc. going on. There we go. Less towards the stables here, because that would be heavily trodden. But something like this, next to the path, maybe a little bit. There. Now we've got a courtyard, and we've got a little bit of a garden in the background. If I colour this tree in, like so, slide up towards a lighter colour where the sun is hitting it, slightly darker colour where the sun is not hitting it, maybe even a little bit of drop shadow. I wouldn't do the drop shadows this way. I'm going to show you a better way of doing this. You know, maybe, oh, see, this is why I can't do the drop shadows this way. You know, but a little bit of sort of shadow from the tree, like so. That is equally a little bit of a garden area. And that's how I tend to think about it. That's how I draw them. we're going to move on and actually do some more gardens, I think, in this temple area. We're going to do lots of gardens in between all of these temples. We'll do that off camera, and I will show you the net result. And then we're going to move on. We're going to take a look at farms, which are a slightly different approach, and then dead trees and how to do different seasons, and even then how to draw evergreen trees, because it is a very different approach. Until then, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I love sharing my little techniques with you. If you enjoyed this video, please do hit me up with a like down below. Maybe check out my Patreon. Love you, and I'll see you on the flip side.